The Dutch of the Transvaal, known as the Boers, came into the British sphere after the region of South Africa was awarded to the British after the Napoleonic Wars. While relations were tense, the two lived relatively peacefully with each other, but further British expansion from Cape Town strained those relations increasingly over the years. When the British outlawed slavery in all its territories, the Boers, who were primarily farmers dependent on slavery to run their farms, were outraged. With the British victory over the Zulu, the British took greater oversight of the Transvaal and the Boers living in it. Boer resentment of British interference grew to a boiling point and finally exploded when diamonds were discovered in the region, bringing a flood of British and other immigrants to the Transvaal, causing an open war to break out between the Boers and the British in 1880. Almost from the beginning, the war was a disaster for the British, as an army convoy was ambushed and destroyed, while almost every British outpost in the Transvaal came under siege within a week. British forces were then crushed and almost wiped out at the battles of Laing's Nek, Schoenstatt, and Majuba Hill. British losses were over 700, while Boer losses mounted to just over 50. If counting just deaths, then it's an even more staggering 400 British dead to the Boers 7. A staggering 58-to-1 kill ratio, earning one of the greatest humiliations in British history. The British quickly sued for peace, and in the final treaty, the Boers would have complete self-government while England would dictate foreign policy. Many factors contributed to the amazing British defeat on both sides of the war. Starting with the Boers, they enjoyed an intimate knowledge of the land, which gave them a great advantage in choosing where and when to fight. The Boers' use of asymmetrical warfare, which the British had no training for, by refusing to give battle traditionally, line formations and open trading volleys, the Boers used loose formations while firing independently from cover and concealment. The Boers used subdued colors of clothing that blended into the surrounding African landscape, making them difficult to spot. Finally, due to the fact that the majority of Boers were farmers who had to hunt on an almost daily basis to eat, most were excellent marksmen who held annual marksman competitions with each other. Difficult to see and firing from cover, these Boers were lethal with their extremely accurate rifles. The British had many shortcomings that contributed to their slaughter. Overconfidence did almost as much harm as the enemy in a lot of situations, but not the only problem in the British ranks. The bright red uniforms and white helmets made them easy targets for the excellent Boer marksmen they faced. The British inability to adapt to a different kind of warfare and instead continue to try and fight the Duggan Boers in traditional line formations where they were easily picked off in scores. Finally, the horrendous accuracy of the British soldiers meant that they had little chance of hitting their hard-to-see and dug-in foes. British infantry had since Napoleonic times been trained in volley fire, so training and accuracy had never been given much priority. The biggest consequence of this war was it caused the British Army to completely reform almost everything in order for such an overwhelming defeat to never happen again. The brightly colored uniforms of the Napoleonic period were dropped in favor of a khaki uniform, which changed shade depending on the terrain they would be fighting in. Lighter colors for deserts and darker colors for greener forested terrain. The Army began investing in more accurate rifles for the infantry while adopting looser formations and finally much more focus on accuracy training. The army that England would field in the Second Boer War and then in World War I was nearly unrecognizable to its 1880s version and would pay great dividends in those wars. Particularly in World War I, where England would go into that war with arguably the best trained, best equipped, and most accurate army in Europe, if not the world, allowing it to hold its own against a much larger German army in those early months of the war. Welcome back, Axis Allies and Players, and this is NATO and the CIC, and we are with the First Boer War of 1880. And the fall of 1880. So there's another short war, only 2 turns, and this is the last scenario for the Colonial Wars box set. After this, that's it. So that will be the complete span of everything that is in the first box set, every scenario, every war. And So we'll just get right into the turn. Boers go first, so the Boers have a decision to make. They got to run out the clock. They got to survive for 2 turns. So do they go on, be aggressive and attack the British, or do they just play defensively? Pros and cons to each. If they attack the British, it puts the fight in British territory, and considering there's only 2 turns, that could pretty much guarantee that the British aren't going to be able to take Transvaal. But all infantry have rifling now, so there is a risk that the Boers attack. England gets a lucky roll, gets 2 hits off of that, reduces them down to 1. Now it's England's turn, they attack, they wipe that out, and then they move into Transvaal and oppose because neither side has an income in this game. So the Boers start off with 3 infantry, and that's all they get for the whole scenario. The British, they do get 1 unit per turn. So, or the Boers can play defensively and let the British attack them, and so the Boers will take advantage of that defending at a 2. But once again, the British get some lucky rolls, then the British take Transvaal. So it's risky either way. There is no real right answer. It's just whatever you prefer. Do you prefer to be aggressive, or do you prefer to play more defensively? Pros and cons for both are about equal. So son is playing the Boers, wife's playing the British. Oop. So we'll let them roll the dice and see what happens. See you then. Welcome back, X and Allies players. This is NATO and the CIC, and we are at the beginning of the spring of 1881 turn. And the Boers decided to be aggressive. They moved into South Africa, hit the British, and everything missed. So then the British have no choice. They have to attack every turn. Now on the British turn, they attacked 3 Boer infantry versus 2 British infantry. British missed. Boers got a hit, reduced them down to 1 infantry. The British opted to get a cannon for its new unit to maximize its firepower. And, well, that's it. Like that, it's a quick war, 2 turns. So we'll do the last turn real quick. The Boers have won, and there's only 1 turn left, and even if England gets so this will be the last turn, last roll of the dice, and even if England gets a perfect roll, even if both their units hit, the Boers are still going to have 1 infantry, and England's not going to have enough turns to move into the Transvaal. So the Boers have won. This last turn is just a formality. So we'll roll the dice and see how it goes. See you then. Welcome back, X and Allies players, NATO and the CIC, and the first Boer War is over. And it is a crushing Boer victory. The British failed to drive them out of South Africa, didn't even come close to Transvaal, and they took 3 times as many casualties. So, but that's okay, because for the legacy game, there's really no consequence for England going forward. They'll get their chance for revenge in the Second Boer War. All this really means is that there's going to be a Second Boer War. But with that, that is the end of the Colonial War box set. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We do have the second box set, second map set. Drawn up. It's not remotely ready. It's still very much in the playtesting stage. But we're gonna take a little bit of a break, a couple weeks break, and then we'll showcase the second box set. It's going to be called the Death of Empires. So that will cover from the Spanish-American War to about midway through. Excuse me. I'll cover from the Spanish-American War to World War I, and then to about halfway through the interwar period between World War I and World War II. And that box set will be called The Death of Empires. You guys know history. Should recognize or understand why we're calling it The Death of Empires, because World War I was Death of Empires. But like I said, we're going to take a couple weeks of a break, and then we'll come back and we'll start showing the second box set, where the primary focus of that will be World War I. But like I said, it is still very much in playtesting phase. It'll be a while before that's ready for production and whatnot. So if you stuck around this entire time, thank you very much. Thank you greatly. And in terms of this box set, Colonial Wars, all things willing, we'll be just a couple months out. The only thing we really have to do is make the rule books pretty. The rule books are written and everything. We just got to pretty them up, so it's not just a boring white page with black ink. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks for watching.